はい、クロスディグ1on1始まります。今日のテーマはですね、Weeb が日本経済を救うです。この Weeb っていう言葉、あんまり聞いたことない人いると思うんですけど、実はアメリカのスラングで、アメリカ人でもう日本大好きすぎる人のことを Weeb っていうんですね。で Weeb の人たちっていうのは、単に観光とかアニメとかだけじゃなくて、日本への投資とか日本に来てビジネスを始めるみたいな経済の影響も始めているので、そんなことを話していきたいと思います。でそのものズバリの本がありまして、Weeb が日本を救うっていう本が出ているので、この著者の人、ノア・スミスさんという人が今日アメリカからスタジオに来てくれたので、ノアさんをお呼びしてですね、ノアさん本当に知っといた方がいいキーパーソンなので、お呼びして話を聞いていきたいと思います。So Noah Smith, and welcome to our show.
Great to be here.
So first time on your show, could you introduce yourself to your audience? And tell us about what Substack is.
Hi, I'm Noah Smith.
Okay.
I write a newsletter on something called Substack. Substack is like a blogging platform. You can get blogs in your email or read them online. And so basically it's just a blog, and then some people can pay to read extra
And how many
posts.
subscribers do you have now?
Right now I have 360,000 free subscribers.
Wow, that's extremely popular. And who are the readers?
The readers are everybody. I mean, I tried to analyze the demographics of my readers, and really it's just very, very broad. Just people who read the news, like reading it.
So this is the Japanese version of your book. It says Substack 人気1 economist. So you're an economist because you went to Stanford and studied physics.
Physics.
And then after that you went to Michigan and earned a Ph.D. in economics.
Yes.
So you're an economist? What are you?
I'm kind of a fake economist.
Economist, okay.
Many people who are not economists like to call themselves economists, but I studied economics, and I just like to call myself a blogger.
Blogger.
Yes.
So how many times have you been to Japan? How many times?
Oh, many.
Many.
Too many to count.
Too many count.
I lived here 4 years, and then now I come at least once a year, sometimes as many as 3 times.
So in your book, you mentioned a particular magazine you just saw in 2003, and that's why you came to Japan. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah. Well, so around 2003, I started getting interested in Japanese things, and the first thing I liked was a movie called Battle Royale.
Battle Royale, yes.
Great movie, classic. And then there was this magazine called Fruits.
Fruits.
Yes, by Aoki Shoichi-san. And it was full of street fashion. And I thought, that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I have to live in Japan.
Wow. Did you get the magazine in the United States?
Well, actually, I got a book that was published in the United States of the best photographs from the 1990s.
How's Japan right now compared to the 1990s?
Oh, well, I'm too young for the 90s, but I came in the mid-2000s.
Okay.
And Japan is, in some ways, Japan has really changed a lot. I think social change has been really big. Women work now, and the cities are even nicer than they were before, and there's a lot more international stuff. It's so much more international, and there's a lot more people move from business to business. There's a lot more dynamism, I guess. So that's really cool, but economically, it definitely feels worse off than it was then.
Interesting. So today I'll ask about your book and also ask 3 topics. So number 1 is about the Weeb economy and also 雑居ビル, which is very special in your book. And second part, I want to talk about why Japan lost its future. And in your book, you argue that Japan lost its future not in 1990, but in 2008. So we want to talk about the challenges Japan is facing right now. And for the final part, I want to ask the future of Japan, how Japan can make a comeback. So for the first part, I want to ask about the Weeb economy. And the term Weeb, it's not too much familiar in Japan right now. Could you explain to us, elaborate on what Weeb is?
Right.
Yeah.
So Weeb started out as a slang word, just a nonsense word, on an American BBS called 4chan.
It's like a Nichan.
It's based on Nichan. It's just an imitation. And so ironically, 4chan is now owned by a Japanese company, and Nichan that is owned by, I think, Americans.
It's the other way around.
So, but it just means a non-Japanese person who likes Japanese culture. And it's not just Americans. It's people all over the world. And I think America is not even the most weeb country. I think France, Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, maybe Scandinavia. These are the most weeb countries. Maybe Brazil. Mexico. There's so many weebs. You know, every time I meet Mexican immigrants, we just talk about Japanese anime.
How many weebs? What's the population? Is there like statistic or something?
I don't know, but my guess is 1 billion.
1 billion.
1 billion weebs.
1 billion weebs. And so weeb spells W-E-E-B. So it's a random word. Does it mean anything? Or
No, no
does it
meaning
stand
at
for
all.
something? Or
No.
Where did it come from, weeb?
So on 4chan, they, I don't remember why, but there was someone made a filter to replace, I don't remember, like otaku or something, I don't remember, with the word weeaboo, which has no meaning. And just like a sound, like a, like a sound word, like weeaboo, I don't know. So then they shortened weeaboo to weeb. And so it's just total nonsense.
Wow, because I believe a lot of Japanese people have never heard of that word, weeb.
Yes, it's interesting because it's a word that applies specifically to Japan, but that everyone except Japan knows in the world.
That's interesting. It's not about Korea, China, but only about Japan.
Only about Japan.
Wow. So what's the definition? Is it like people who just like Japan, or is it anime fans, or Japanese food, or?
Well, that's a great question. So actually, I would say there's two circles of weeb.
Two circles of weeb.
The outer circle of weeb likes food, cities, movies, music, anything, but a history, anything like that. But then the inner circle of weeb is like anime otaku kind of people. And those hardcore weebs are a very special subculture. And I really learned about this because my sister was one. My little sister met her husband in the high school anime club.
Wow. So what's the difference between Japanese anime and subculture and like Hollywood movies, or you guys have American comic books? What's so special about Japanese subculture? Well,
honestly, it's similar to what Hollywood did. Hollywood created this fantasy America for the whole world.
Yeah.
And I think now people realize the fantasy is not real. But then for so many years, it was this fantasy idea of what America was like, and it inspired people all over the world in the 20th century. And now I think Japanese pop culture, anime, manga, video games, cosplay, they inspire people with this sort of fantasy Japan.
Right. So it's interesting you mentioned fantasy because, on pop culture, Japan's kind of illustrated like Battle Royale or Akira, very science fiction, future thing. So after you came to Japan, do you see the fantasy happening here, or is it different? The real Japan is different from what you read in that comic books?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the real... The fantasy that everybody likes is very like shonen.
Shonen.
Yeah, but the reality was more like shoujo.
Okay, that's an interesting point.
You can see all the actual locations that are in like a slice of life manga. You can go there and it looks just like in the anime.
Wow, so it's like which places, like Shinjuku, Shibuya?
So the most famous one in Kimi no Nawa, there's this famous stairway.
That's right. Yeah.
And now everyone in America wants to take a picture at that stairway.
And there's a place for Slam Dunk, the basketball comic. There's a place in Kanagawa, the trains. Yeah.
Yes.
So it seems real to the weeb.
Yes.
Yeah.
But really, weebs don't even always go to Japan.
Okay.
There's a weeb subculture. And if you go to America, you can see all of these people from all races, all classes, it unites people from all over the world, and all of society are united in loving Japanese pop culture.
So is there a community so is weeb a singular now, or weebs?
Weebs.
Weebs, okay.
Weebs.
So are there like a community, is there a community for weebs, or people read your Substack, or?
Well, so my Substack is not important to weebs.
Okay.
But I know lots of weebs. For example, my friend, she does security for Mark Zuckerberg. So she's kind of, elite kind of worker, but her hobby is cosplay.
Wow.
She and her boyfriend are famous cosplayers in America.
Wow.
I think he's Chinese and she's Chinese American, and they do cosplay together. And they read my post, and they said, "This is the best post we've ever read. You got it perfect." And so then many weebs have said the same.
Interesting. So you mentioned like there are maybe 1 billion weebs in the world, and so your book is talking about the Japanese economy. So how does it link together? So how can the weebs boost the Japanese economy?
Right. So Japan's market is shrinking. Japan needs to sell things to the rest of the world. They need exports.
Yes.
And currently, Japanese companies are a little cut off culturally from the rest of the world, so it's difficult for them to export. Poland has shown, and also China and Taiwan and Malaysia, some of these countries, but especially Poland, has shown that a good way to get exports is to get foreign companies to build factories and startups in your country and then export to the rest of the world. So for example, German companies build car factories in Poland, but then they export Polish cars to the rest of the world, Polish-made cars. And so this is an effective strategy. So it doesn't replace traditional companies, but it exists alongside them. It's like a second track for the economy. And I think everyone in the world wants to live in Japan now. So I think that Japan can boost this kind of investment, which is called greenfield FDI.
Yeah, we have a graph. Yes, greenfield. Yes. Could you explain to us? Yeah. What is greenfield investment?
Greenfield investment is when companies, instead of buying an existing company like M&A, they instead build a new factory or office, research center, or start a new startup.
Like TSMC of Taiwan?
Exactly. This is the perfect example. TSMC in Kumamoto. They didn't take over a Japanese company.
Right.
Instead, they built their own factories, and those chips that they make in Kumamoto will be sold everywhere in the world.
So before reading your book, I thought, I understand that Japanese anime is extremely popular, but exporting, to me, it seemed to me like just selling Dragon Slayers all over the world. But you're mentioning that it's not about anime, but also inviting people, business professionals, into Japan.
Right. So I think 25 years ago, Japan got the idea that cultural exports would be big.
Yeah, like, and it Cool Japan or something
yes,
like that.
Cool Japan. Now, the government's Cool Japan program was, not so great, but the overall effort really succeeded well.
Right.
And it was a huge success. Cultural exports are really through the roof. And now it's time for stage 2.
Stage 2. So you mean that stage 2 is that inviting people who like Japanese anime, Japanese culture, but not just exporting the culture, but inviting people so people have a life they can enjoy in Japan and do other business.
Exactly right. So semiconductors, AI, electronics, appliances, all of the people who make those things in Taiwan, in Korea, in anywhere in the world. Even aircraft manufacturers from Europe or Brazil, these people would want to live in Japan. And so if if a multinational company puts its factories here, it's very easy to get the workers to move here. All the workers want to move here. That's one of the biggest difficulties with foreign investment is getting the workers to move.
So why do people want to live in Japan?
Well, Japan has the best quality of life. Of course, there's no crime, it's clean, the food is the best, and the cities are designed very well. So we can talk about, Zakyo buildings. But so that's one reason. But also, people just love the culture of Japan. And, maybe they're not like otaku weebs, maybe they're not the hardcore weebs, but they're the more general outer circle of weebs, and they love the idea of being in Japan.
Do you have any plans to live in Japan?
Yes.
Okay. Why is that?
I want to move here.
You want to move here?
I want to move here. I lived here before, and I would love to live here again. honestly, America is getting kind of stupid right now with Trump and the politics.
Right.
I would love to live here again. And also, I feel a strong connection to Japan. It's not just that I like Japan. I actually feel a strong connection to it because I lived here when I was young. And, in kind of my formative years, I lived here. And so I really, it's my home away from home. But I think that I'm not typical. But other people would like to make it their home away from home.
Is it not just like ramen or anime, but like kind of a Japanese culture, which people are not social divided. People get along together. Is that the secret, or why?
Absolutely. In San Francisco, I live in San Francisco, and I hang out with people in the tech industry. And when I go to their parties or events, it's almost entirely just tech industry people, mostly. But when I come here and I go to events with tech industry people, there are people who are, bartenders, or maybe even like, just some random company employee, or just do some blue collar job, or even work as like a security guard or something. And it's amazing the lack of class differences.
That's true. Yeah. Do you think it's more diverse? Japan's more diverse compared to the United States?
In terms of classism, yes.
Interesting.
So, of course, people say Japan isn't diverse because there's not as many people from
very
all around the
homogeneous,
world. Yes. But in terms of, like in America, I hang out with people from all over the world who do the same job.
So the class is the same, but the race and all different. But that's different kind of diversity in Japan.
Exactly.
Let's talk about雑居ビル. So is 雑居ビル special? Is it only in Japan?
Yes. Well, so it's not only in Japan. You can find a little bit in Taiwan, Korea, even a tiny bit in New York City. But it's much, much more in Japan. I mean, in big cities, so many buildings are zakyo.
Zakyo bill, you mean that there's restaurants, residents, restaurants, everything on one place.
Specifically, I mean that shops are all the way up to the 4th or 8th floor. That's what's special about Japan.
Because in New York, I visited New York, there's like a similar zakyo bill, shop in the first floor and the residence area on the top. But
I'm not calling that zakyo.
Okay, that's not zakyo.
So that's not...
It's not zakyo.
Right. We call that shop top housing.
That's right. So zakyo is more, mixed.
Yes. So shops all the way up. So America and France and Hong Kong and these other countries, they all put shops on the first floor, then housing on top.
Housing top.
And then Japan puts shops, 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 shops. That's what's special.
So what do you like about zakyo biru?
So, there's several things I like. The first thing is when you have zakyo buildings, you can concentrate many more shops within a small geographical area.
Okay, you don't have to visit all places, but you can do your shopping only in one building.
Exactly, or only in one neighborhood.
One neighborhood, yeah.
So if you walk around, suppose you walk 2,000 meters in an afternoon, then in Japan you can see 4 times or maybe even 8 times as many shops as in New York. You can see so many shops, so you can find new shops, you can visit many shops at once, and the density, the commercial density, just becomes much higher. And that's the first thing, so just a discovery of new places. I think that's one reason why Japan has so many small businesses, restaurants, bars, small stores. It can support more small businesses because it's easy to find them in a small geographic area. So that's number one. Number two, because the shops are so concentrated, you can have quiet areas close to the shops.
That's true, yeah.
So you know Shoto?
Yes.
In Shibuya.
Shibuya.
It's amazing. Shoto is 8-minute walk from, Ichimaru-kyu.
That's right.
So 8 minutes.
It's funny in your book because, for Japanese people, like 8 or 10 minutes away from the station seems pretty far. But you argue that's not true in the other parts of the world. It's very dense.
Of course. If you go to Midtown Manhattan, if you want to get to, a similar area to Shoto, so that would be like Upper West Side.
Yeah, that's true.
You have to walk 30 minutes or more.
Or take a taxi.
Or 40 minutes just to get there. In Japan, 8 minutes. Amazing. And so this makes cities really nice because you can have a quiet residential area close to the greatest shopping districts in the world, and you can just walk.
So what's the secret behind zakyo? Is it based on Japanese culture? Why are the Japanese people like creating so many zakyo bills?
Well, it's a complete accident. So the zoning laws,
Yes.
the zoning laws, I think in the 70s, said that you can build this many stories, but you have mixed use, and so it really encouraged zakyo buildings just by an accident of law. And of course, you know, Japan also has really good trains, and the commercial spaces are built around the train station. But then, so that's helpful too. But then, so city planning helps, but then it's kind of an accident of zoning, and they allowed signs. So what's interesting is that I think a lot of Japanese people think that zakyo signs are ugly.
Yeah, I think so too, yeah.
But Americans think that these are beautiful. And people from all over the world think this is beautiful. Look, if Japan replaces zakyo buildings with indoor malls like, you know, Hikariya at Shibuya, replacing zakyo, tourists will not be, they won't think Japan is as beautiful.
So zakyo is beautiful, more interesting, more special.
Yeah. It looks natural. It looks like a forest of lights. It looks like the land of the elves or something.
Okay.
You know, just this magical forest of lights.
Forest.
And then that's why everyone goes to Yasukuni Dori to take pictures. And if you put like a selfie at Yasukuni Dori on Instagram, so many people will like it. They'll say, "Oh, this is amazing," and or Kabukicho or you know Shibuya. This looks so beautiful, but then an indoor mall like just looks like nothing. It looks like Singapore. It looks like New York. It looks like France.
Wow.
Anything.
So your book, the Weeb economy and zakyo, do you think this only applies to Tokyo, or do you think rural any areas like Kumamoto, Kyushu, Tohoku have the similar specialties?
Well, so of course it applies to other cities. You know, I think Osaka is even better for zakyo than Tokyo.
Yes, more zakyo bill in Osaka.
Yeah, because they, you know, they're a little older in their development.
Yeah.
And of course Nagoya has some, and Fukuoka. But then, in terms of rural areas and small towns, I think they have a different aesthetic.
Yeah.
They have this sort of cobblestone streets and sort of old-looking buildings with the sliding doors and the, you know, shingled roofs and the, you know, cute little gardens, and people love those too.
So you said a lot of good things about Japan. Let's talk about the kind of negative side or the challenges Japan's facing. So in your book, you mentioned that Japan lost its future in 2008 and not in 1990. So could you elaborate on that?
Right. So first of all, if you look at just GDP growth, you see that in the mid-2000s, from maybe 2001 or 2 through 2008, beginning of 2008, Japan grew faster than the US and faster than Europe. Japan was like the fastest growing rich economy except for maybe like Singapore or something. And it really did well. That was the Koizumi boom.
Yes.
I guess. And during that time, Japan also had lots of leading technology. So you had hybrid cars took over the world, the Toyota Prius. You had 3G phones, you know, HD TVs, like HD DVDs, and lots of other technologies. And also you had like, you know, Nichan style BBS and lots of cultural things. It was a really good cultural time in Japan. So really in 2007, Japan still felt like it's the future.
Okay.
And then the global financial crisis hit and the yen went way up.
Right.
So Japanese exports got really hurt. And then financing was really hurt because Japanese banks couldn't lend and they became much more conservative. And then you had the earthquake and the nuclear disaster. And after that, nuclear power was shut off and Japanese electricity became so much more expensive. And then because of this, Japan started to be cut off from global supply chains, and China replaced it in global supply chains.
So before 2007, do you think that Japan was like the front runner, like in terms of like world economy?
I mean, it wasn't, you know, in the 1980s, Japan was alone at the top.
Of course, yeah.
But in 2007, it was Japan, Korea, you know, and a few other countries doing well, Taiwan.
Yeah.
But I think Japan was near the
Right.
forefront, and it was still at the forefront of technology in some industries.
It's interesting you mentioned 2007 because that's the time when like iPhone came into the market. So Japan used to have iMode, which is very similar to iPhone. But do you think that kind of replaced the Japanese technology, iPhone, Apple?
Maybe, but in 2010, if you looked at the components of the iPhone was Japanese.
That's right.
The chips in the iPhone, the screen, all the high-value components in an iPhone were made in Japan. So you had this thing called the smile curve, where Apple did the design and marketing in America, so they made lots of profit. Japan made all the good components, and then China just did cheap final assembly. Maybe only 10% or even only 5% of the value of the iPhone was in Guangdong. And they assembled it, but it was so low value. All the components were Japanese or maybe Korean.
So we call this the lost decades, 失われた30年. So for 30 years, we have the chart of the real wages. So it's like simply flat for
Right.
20 or 30 years.
Right.
What's the problem here?
So first of all, part of what you're looking at here is a composition effect. The baby boom generation was very overpaid because of lifetime employment and seniority-based promotions. When they retired and they were getting paid more than their marginal product of labor. And when they retired and younger people started getting paid less than their marginal product of labor and they replaced them.
Sure.
And so this was responsible for part of this. And part of it is simply opening up the economy to new people. So the Koizumi reforms allowed keiyakushain, the contract workers, and then women entered the workforce, young people entered the workforce, old people stayed longer. All those people are lower earning. So there's many, many composition effects in that graph. And so, but on top of that, you also had wage competition, especially from China, holding down wages. But then on top of that, you had lower investment.
So how can we change this situation?
Investment.
Investment.
So
Okay.
domestic investment. And if you ask people in the Bank of Japan or like Keisansho, they really know that domestic investment is the key. And the problem with domestic investment is that Japan is a very aging country. Now, other countries are aging just as fast now. Japan isn't alone. But it means that Japan is a small country that's aging. It's not small, but it's medium small. Let's be honest, it's not big. And so Japan is not this big country where the domestic market is growing and is very important anymore. They have to shift their strategy and act like a small country that has to export. Japan has to be more like Korea or Taiwan.
In your book, you mentioned a column by a BBC correspondent. Wingfield, yeah.
Right.
And the title was Japan was the future, but it's stuck in the past.
Right.
Yeah.
So he doesn't speak Japanese, and he thinks that Japan hasn't changed since the 1990s. I'm sorry, but that's crazy. I have been coming here since the early 2000s, and in that time, the built environment has changed so much, society has changed so much, culture has changed. I mean, Japanese food has changed. I'm sorry, but in 2005, most Japanese food was only kind of okay because you couldn't import food. Then Abe-san reformed agricultural imports.
Yeah.
Now you can import food. And of course, this is why Japanese people are now getting a little fatter.
Okay.
But because imported food is not as good for you. But now Japanese food is... has gotten so good, it's now the best in the world.
Best in the world.
Or, Japanese culture has changed. This kind of show didn't exist in the 1990s.
That's true.
You're the new Japan.
New Japan, okay.
And honestly, it's become so much more international. I'm the new Japan.
Japan.
Talking about weebs, this didn't happen in the 1990s. And so much has changed. The economy has been stagnant since 2008, but society has changed a lot, and that's an important kind of change.
So that leads to our final part of this interview. We want to talk about how Japan can make the comeback, and here's a graph of popularity.
There we go.
国家ブランド指数. So you can see that Japan is popular among other parts of the world. Like Japan's number one in Germany. So we have like a strong brand.
Yes. Right, that's right. Japan is the most popular country in the world. And you're looking at a chart of Weeb.
Weeb, okay. This is a chart of Weeb, okay.
You're in Weeb data.
Weeb data, okay.
And then it doesn't show what people like about Japan, but there's many different things people like about Japan. There's, there's like anime weebs, there's cosplay weebs, but there's also like food weebs and architecture weebs, history weebs, and urbanism weebs, train weebs. And then it's like otaku, except specifically for Japan. And yeah.
But the key is that we have to turn that weebs into real economy or investment or business. Like you talked about Sakana AI, so we need more Sakana AIs in Japan.
That's right. I would say almost all AI companies will fail. So I love the Sakana AI guys, but the chance of success is only 10%
of course, yes.
for one company. But people now, because of Sakana, people know that you can start your AI company in Japan. So if you get 100 companies, maybe 10 will succeed.
So what's the what's the strengths of Japan having? So if you want to start a company, an AI company, is it better starting in Japan or in the West Coast or San Francisco?
It's still better in San Francisco, but that advantage is narrowing. The United States, you're going to pay so much higher costs, the housing costs, just the wages. An entrepreneur. He's a French American who now lives in Japan. He said to me the other day, engineers will not take a 10x pay cut to live in Japan, but they will take a 5x pay cut.
Okay.
So then, people who will earn $1 million a year in the United States will work in Japan for $200,000 a year. They won't work for $100,000, but they will work for $200,000. That's a huge advantage.
Yeah. So I always talk to foreign investors and entrepreneurs outside Japan, and they understand that they like Japan, they like the ramen, the culture, but as a tourist, they like Japan.
Right.
But when they come to Japan, they say there's two challenges. One is language barrier, you have to speak Japanese, and second is wages. It's very difficult to pay a lot of money to engineers in a Japanese for a Japanese company. How can we overcome that two challenges?
Right. So actually, I don't think wages are that big of a problem.
Okay.
Now it's very easy to get foreign workers. And so Japanese workers, the problem is the English language skills are not great. But I'll be honest, nobody really learns English in high school. Nobody really learns Japanese in high school. Nobody learns anything in high school.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
that's true. That's the reality, yes.
Right. So I would say when you really learned English well, you learned it probably college and then especially after college.
That's right.
When I learned Japanese, I learned it in college a little bit, and then after college, living in Osaka. I taught myself because I had to teach myself to hang out with the kind of punk rockers and fashion people.
Okay.
Those people didn't speak any English.
Okay.
So I taught myself. And this is where people really learn English. And if the demand for English-speaking engineers exists in Japan, all the software engineers will teach themselves English. They will learn English to get a good job. And so I think that startups, let's call them Weeb startups, in Japan will have half foreign workers, half Japanese workers. And those foreign workers and Japanese workers will interact. And at first it will be difficult, but AI tools are getting so much better.
That's right. Yeah, the translation, everything, yeah.
AI translation. And, at first, a lot of the Weebs will learn Japanese. Maybe in 20 years, people will learn Japanese overseas. Or 10 years, people will learn Japanese overseas before they come. But now they'll learn Japanese when they're here. At first they won't speak it, but they'll learn it from their colleagues, from studying, from living in Japan, wanting to talk to people. And so I've seen some of these places. I just visited one of their offices 2 days ago. And so the company Spellbrush, my friends started that company, and they do AI art and for like anime.
Okay.
And they are huge weebs.
Okay.
They're half American, half Chinese.
Interesting.
And they're huge weebs, and now they set up a Japanese branch office, and they're hiring Japanese people and people from like China and US to come here.
That's like the future of Japan. It's a great example.
Yeah. But in terms of dollars of investment or yen of investment and in terms of total number of people, big company investment will be even bigger. So like TSMC Kumamoto, scale that up. More of that.
Great. So Noah-san, we have to wrap up. Oh, before that, you're planning on a new second book?
That's right. I'm planning on writing a second book, another strategy Japan can use in addition to foreign investment. I think defense investment, defense research.
Wow. What will be the title of your book?
I think my working title is Athena Economy. Because Athena is the Greek goddess of defense and also of wisdom and technology. So combine those, defense research.
So what do you mean by defense? Like drones or robots, AI?
Yes, everything.
Everything.
Drones, robots, AI, semiconductors, every important technology can be used for defense. And Japan, because of years of pacifism, lacks a defense innovation and defense research infrastructure. But in the United States, 60% of federal government research is defense related. So Japan can do something similar.
And it's linked to like technology companies in Japan, America, so that both are interacting together and growing together in United States.
Yes, and it trains so many engineers, especially software.
Right. Okay, so we need to wrap up, and I highly recommend this Weebが日本を救う to our audience. You should get this copy. So could you give us a final comment for our viewers, audience?
Yes, well, I mean, I'm really optimistic. I think that the more Japanese people understand that the world loves their country, the more that they can use that for economic benefit. Not just to like sell cultural products overseas, but Japan can become a new center of global supply chains, a center of the global economy, not like an isolated country, but sort of a nexus for the world.
Interesting. チャンネル登録ぜひお願いします。CROSSDIG1on1 以上となります。So, Noah Smith, welcome to, thank you for joining our show, and もう一回来てください。Please come and join us again.
Of course. Thank you.